spent so many years wishing that I could just talk and be normal and just be a normal human. Last night, I was lying in bed and I couldn't fall asleep. My mind started wandering. I was thinking about social anxiety. I came across a quote on Instagram. The quote was something like, "I write because it's the one place I can be myself." And it made me think, that's the exact reason I write. I literally write to share things that I feel like I can't share in real life, knowing that one day people will probably read these things. I'm referring to screenplays that will hopefully one day become movies. And then it also made me think that's actually the exact reason I started acting. You all know I was diagnosed with selective mutism at age 5, I think, and it was really bad. Leaving the house, I froze up, I didn't say a word. Slowly, over the years, I slowly got used to being like in the world more. But there was a point in the beginning of my childhood where I could only talk to my parents. I couldn't even talk to my extended family. They all thought I was weird. Everyone thought I was a freak. I'm not even kidding. In elementary school, raising my hand was the bravest thing I could do in a day. It was hard for me to make eye contact with my teachers. It was hard for me to make eye contact with other kids. I was lonely a lot of the times, but I didn't really know what loneliness was because I was just used to being by myself. When somebody came up to me and asked me to play with them on the playground, I was super happy because I could never go up to them. I hated group work with a passion. Everything was just hard. Being in the world was hard. When I was 8, I got put on Prozac for a few months. I just remember on Easter, I could walk up to the buffet on my own, and I was like extra talkative at dinner around the extended family, and my parents were like, "Oh, she's on Prozac, everyone, that's why she's talking now." So that was embarrassing. I do remember that. In 4th grade, I got my first therapist. I remember she did this thing where she took me outside and she asked me to say my name to her. And each time I said it, she took a step away from me. And the further she got, the louder I had to say my name. Eventually, she was pretty far away from me. And I said my name and she said, "I can't hear you, say it louder." And I yelled my name outside to this lady that I didn't know very well at all. It felt so liberating in a way because I was never loud and open like that in front of people. And for that split second while I was yelling my name, I felt so free and brave, like I broke through something that was holding me back, even if just for a second. In high school, I went to an alternative high school where everyone was artsy and everybody was unique. I'd always been unique and really artsy. I felt like I could be myself there, but I still didn't feel like I could talk. Ever since I was 5 and I picked up my dad's video camera and started making home movies, I would act in these movies and I would like be behind the camera, because what else are you gonna do when you're 5? You don't have a casting crew, right? Slowly over the years, this love I had for playing pretend and storytelling never went away. The traffic is so loud. Writing stories and acting in my living room and making movies was a few things for me. It was an escape. It was a companion because I didn't have that many friends as a kid. It was a way for me to use my imagination, and I've always and still do have a huge imagination, like way too big. There's no such thing as too big, but like mine is huge. It was also my passion, just something I loved doing. I would write books. When I was old enough to figure out how, I started writing screenplays. When I started becoming friends with the neighborhood kids, I would make them be in my movies. They actually wanted to be in them, I don't know why, but I have a lot of movies that are just me directing them and acting in them, and like the neighborhood kids and my brothers and sister. My dad's a filmmaker too, so eventually he started putting me in his movies. When I was in middle school, he produced a short film called Star Kid. I acted in it, and that was my first like professional film set experience. And in high school, I realized I wanted to be an actor. So I started looking up, how do you become an actor? I couldn't move to LA yet. We lived in Seattle. So every time there was a play in high school, I made myself audition for it. Even though the concept of auditioning was the scariest thing ever, acting was the first aspect of my life where I basically decided to ignore fear. I would ignore the fear and I would go to these high school play auditions. In high school, I did 3 different plays, I think. Acting for me has always been the same thing. When I'm in character, the rest of the world disappears. When the director yells action, everyone else disappears. And I'm in the scene and my imagination takes over. I'm not afraid. And in high school specifically, it was the one place where I felt like I could be not myself, but just talk without having to ask permission or without being afraid. Because when you're saying lines, you're not talking as yourself. But when you're talking as yourself and you have social anxiety, you feel sometimes like you have to ask for permission, or just like you can't, maybe at all. And acting was the first thing that happened to me in life where I felt like I didn't have to ask for permission and like I could be or do or say anything. So last night as I was lying in bed, I was almost feeling nostalgic for my social anxiety, which is crazy because I spent so many years wishing that I could just talk and be normal and just be a normal human. I spent so many years crying myself to sleep because I couldn't even talk to a kid that I really wanted to talk to, or I couldn't, or I had a presentation the next day, or I had a job interview and I didn't want to go, or like all these crazy things. And I was lying in bed last night just thinking about not only acting and not only the quote I found, but just how far I've come as a person. Because none of those things scare me anymore. I don't feel like I have social anxiety anymore, and I made a video on this, but since making that video I feel like it's become even less of a problem, if that's even possible. I literally feel like a normal human, and I was just thinking last night about how I wish I could go back to my high school self, or my middle school self, or even my elementary school self, and tell her that things will get better, that I'll learn to talk, that I'll find my voice somehow. And I wish I could go back and tell her that, but at the same time, I guess I don't, because I'm glad I had those challenges and those experiences, and I'm walking in circles because I made it to the store, but I'm not ready to go in yet. Over the last few weeks, I found myself at different moments in life stopping and like noticing myself from like the outside of my body and just watching what's happening and being just so awestruck and amazed at how far I've come as a social person. Just the things I do that I never would have done even 2 years ago. I'm just a person now that lives in the world and isn't afraid of talking to people. I could try and say some examples, but there are literally thousands at this point. Like the other day, I got an acting role and we had to drive 2 hours to the location, and I was in the car with these 2 girls that I just met for 2 hours, and we were having conversations the whole time. And I was totally a part of it. And I spent all day on set with them. I stopped and looked at myself from the outside and I was like, you are a part of this, having conversations, you are working with them, you aren't just sitting quietly in the corner until it's your turn to go and shoot your scene like you used to do. I went to the club the other day. I'm gonna make a whole video on that because that was crazy and it was a challenge. Some things are still challenges. Eating with people or getting coffee with people or meeting with people one-on-one is still a challenge. Because I feel like I have more of an expectation where I have to talk if it's a one-on-one thing. Doing this is a challenge. Walking down the street, talking to a camera because people are watching me. I feel uncomfortable. Boys and dating and that whole world is still a challenge, but I have stuff to talk about there too for a different video. Anyway, I think at some point over the past year, maybe I was lying in my bed and sleeping, and I think maybe a fairy came with a magic wand and like tapped me on the head with some pixie dust and magically took my social anxiety away, because that's how it feels. It feels like that. If you have social anxiety, you're probably frustrated all the time because you hate it so much, and maybe you think it'll never go away, and I can't promise that it will, but maybe it will if you keep on working at challenging yourself and at leaving your comfort zone one day and one thing and one moment at a time. That's what I did. I had therapy. I've had like 10 different therapists and like a bunch of different medication, and I've done a million things. But if you keep trying every day, even though it's hard, maybe one day you'll be looking back at your younger self like I'm looking back, and you'll think, wow, I can't believe where I am right now. And now there are too many people around, so I'm gonna end this video and go into the store. I'll try to upload videos more often, but life's been kind of busy. You'll see why in my next update video, if I ever get around to making it. Okay, I'll talk to you guys next time. Until then, stay awesome.